Hi everyone, Bifties here. Welcome to my Exile. So I've been playing Path of Exile 2 for a couple of months now. I didn't come over from Path of Exile 1, so I don't know how to compare the two. But I've been receiving comments on some of my videos, and I've been surprised by the community and their take on Path of Exile 2. Many people seem to be disappointed with Path of Exile 2, and I was surprised at this because I considered it to be a natural successor to the original game, even though I hadn't played it. So I had assumed that most people would move over from 1 to 2 and that perhaps that would be the end of 1, or that people would go back for nostalgia and that would be about it. But that doesn't seem to be the case because they do appear to be very different games. Although, from my point of view, if I was to look at the two of them, it would look like Path of Exile 2 is just a modern update of Path of Exile 1. However, apparently they play incredibly differently, and that has affected a lot of people's enjoyment. So I'm wondering, and I wanted to ask the question, are you, as a POE1 player, disappointed with Path of Exile 2? My point of view is that Path of Exile 2 is already the best ARPG I've ever played. Path of Exile 1 was not easy for me to get into, and I barely put any time into it. I tried it when Settlers of Kalgur came out, and I thought that that would be great. It would keep me going for a few months until the release, but that wasn't the case. It was hard to get into. It looked old. It didn't play how I wanted it. And I actually ended up going back to Diablo 4 and playing the campaign there again, and I enjoyed that. I just couldn't see any reason to do any end game, and I even went and had a look at last Epoch again, but I was so confused as to where I got to that I couldn't actually put any more time into that. Now, I know that Path of Exile 2 was originally planned as an upgrade for 1, and I'm assuming had they applied the update and 1 had therefore gone, then people would be particularly angry. Had they done it as an update, then it may have been more fleshed out. It may have been different. I know that Endgame, people are telling me it's maybe 20% complete, and obviously there's a long way to go with that. But it was interesting to think about it and to wonder where everybody was coming from, because I just thought everybody would love it. I'm loving it, but that doesn't seem to be the case. And I've seen the numbers on Steam for Path of Exile 1 going back up, and the average daily numbers for Path of Exile 2 coming down. Now, 2 has still got far superior numbers to 1, and that made me think back to a long time ago when I used to play an MMO called EverQuest, and that was probably at the very end of the 90s. Internet was still pretty new, so that's how long ago that was, and I absolutely loved that game. My friends and I played it. We would do mammoth sessions where we'd be logged in for 48 hours straight. Friends would take turns in making meals and bringing it up to the room so that we could keep going. Typical MMO stuff. I mean, we even attended a wedding, an in-game wedding and things like that. And then they announced that EverQuest 2 was coming out, and I was really excited for that. And I think there's sort of a mental stage that I go through where I almost move on before the end of the previous game. So I think I had decided that, well, we're going to definitely move to EverQuest 2. There's no doubt about that, which means we'll never play EverQuest 1 again. And unfortunately, when I moved over to EverQuest 2, it just wasn't the same. Obviously, it hadn't run for many, many years. It didn't have the community established, even though a lot of people moved over. It wasn't the same. The guilds weren't the same. The classes weren't the same. The gameplay wasn't the same. It was very different. And I went into it assuming that maybe I was the same person, I was the same player, but because of a number of years in EverQuest, I had changed, and now I was expecting the game to be as it was when I left 1 for 2, and that just didn't happen. And I think my time in EverQuest 2 was very short-lived. Now, many years passed. I moved to different platforms. I left PC shortly after that, and I went and did 3 generations of Xbox, and I enjoyed my time there. And one of the games that I liked the most was Vermintide, Warhammer Vermintide 1. And I played that, but I came late to it. And then they announced Vermintide 2. And again, I went through the mental process of assuming that I'm going to be moving over to Vermintide 2. But this time, it was incredibly good. They'd obviously taken everything that they'd learnt from Verm 1 and now were able to apply it. It was fresh, it was updated. Obviously, there's issues in the beginning, like there's launch issues. I understand that, and that's a bit different with console because I think they go through the launch phase and the beta process is more on the PC, so they get to fix everything there. So I didn't move from 1 to 2. I tried the beta. I did try it for a little while on PC, but there was no point putting too much time into it because I didn't want to then be burnt out and bored of the game. So I tried it out. It looked great. But by the time it came out on Xbox, it was ready and it was really good. And I absolutely loved it. But then a few years later, they announced Warhammer Darktide. And again, I did the same mental process of assuming that I would be moving over from Verm 2 to Darktide, that it would be a very similar game, and that would be it. I wouldn't go back to Verm 2. Maybe we'd revisit it again for nostalgia, but that I would primarily be playing Darktide, and that would now be my game. And that didn't turn out to be the case because it was different. The things that I liked about Verm 1 and Verm 2, they did not copy over to Darktide. And that seemed absolutely nuts for me. It's just, there's no point me going into it, but it just wasn't the same game at all. And everything that I liked was missing and not expected to be added. I think we're 2 years post-launch of Darktide, and the things that I liked have still not been added. So that's kind of it. I'm now done with Darktide. I haven't been back to it for maybe a year. But also, it kind of ruined Verm 2 for me because I'd mentally moved on. And unfortunately, I've never really gone back to it. Now, Fat Shark is the developer there, and I considered myself to be a hardcore Fat Shark fan. I'd tell people Verm 1 was brilliant. I would still play it from time to time, although it didn't run well. I could play it on the Steam Deck. Verm 2 was excellent, but Darktide ruined them all for me. And so that's what I've been thinking about is the EverQuest 1 and 2 situation, the Vermintide 2 to Darktide situation. And now I'm wondering if that, based on the comments that I've seen on my videos and some of the other videos that have been put onto YouTube by fans, it makes me wonder if POE2 has spoilt POE1 at all for you. Has it soured you with Grinding Gear Games? And then Grinding Gear Games put out a video this week, and I praised them for it in another video, and I'll praise them again because I love how open and transparent they are. I think it's excellent. Fat Shark didn't do that, so that's quite new to me. Console doesn't really have that. It's a different world, so I'm still getting used to PC gaming again. But they put out a video to say that because of the development of 2, that new leagues, new seasons for 1 are now delayed. And I think it's probably going to be every 5 months. A comment from somebody in a video said they think they're only going to get a new one every 5 months or something like that, and that it's going to be a long time. Certainly, it's going to be a few more months before you get anything. So does that sour you with Path of Exile? With Grinding Gear Games? Does that stop you wanting to go back? So I really wanted to have the conversation. I wanted to put a video out. I was really surprised by the comments. Again, I think Path of Exile 2 is the best ARPG I've ever played. I did a video previously where I compared it to Last Epoch and Diablo 4, although I absolutely cannot factor in POE1 because I just don't know it, and I don't think that there's any way that I could get into it enough now. People are telling me that even if I learn everything in 2, I'm probably still going to have to read some guides online for 1 and follow a build guide, which doesn't really interest me. I'd like to go back to it for content purposes. I'd like to do some Diablo 4 and some Last Epoch again. But PoE2 is my game now. I don't see that changing for some time. I'm enjoying doing the content. This is all new to me. So I'm enjoying that, but I'm enjoying the game. It's absolutely brilliant. And I know that it's nowhere near complete. So if I'm loving it now, I just feel like I'm going to absolutely love it in the future. But I wanted to ask you, you guys are the community. You've played Path of Exile 1 for 10 years. You know far more than I do. So it's just really interesting to me. So thanks for your time today. Thanks for watching the video. I really appreciate it. Comment about anything to do with the video. I absolutely love reading them. I try to reply to all of them. Subscribe to the channel. I've got some beginner's guides coming up from the point of view of a beginner. So they're probably more for people that aren't coming over from POE1. If you're not a POE1 player and you watch this, then let me know what you thought of it. Tell me if you've ever tried it. Tell me if you're thinking of trying it. Tell me what your take on grinding gear games is and their transparency. So thanks again for watching. I'm Bifties. This is The Cave. Welcome to my exile. See you next time.